Earl Grey hot.
All right, and we're back.
To the future.
Back to the future.
From
Welcome
the past.
of 30 seconds ago.
There you go.
All right, we're getting back into another episode. Welcome to... Oh, I'm Tim.
I'm Joel.
And welcome to the Picard Maneuver again. We are now talking about the next episode, Star Trek Season 2, Episode 8, Mercy.
One more tea?
Yes, I do, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Episode 8. Oct. The best one yet? No, actually, I don't. I think my favorite episode yet was still Episode 1, but...
Yeah, I think 1 and 2 were still my favorite.
They've gotten the last two. I said this in previous... in our monster recap, that I like these two. So if you didn't watch episode 7, our recap of that, then
we never talked about in the last episode the reveal of James Callis being his father.
True. We did talk about the reveal of him being in it, but not that he was not that he was Picard's father.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
That.
That's kind of a big deal.
That's we had a clean 30 minutes too, so we can introduce that right now.
Well, let's do it. So we missed a reveal in episode 7.
That's fine.
Which was?
That the psychoanalyst that he was imagining during his little Ubik dream was his father.
Was Father Picard.
And this backdrop, and this sort of flashback we've been dealing with is dealing with his issues with his mother and his father's relationship. He's felt a seated shame around his mother's mental illness and the fact that his father apparently locked her up and sort of kept her
I got the
isolated
impression
to deal with that mental illness.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is correct, but I almost got the feeling that Picard's memory was that his father was just this evil monster that kept his mother away, and that he didn't necessarily know or had repressed the details that the mother was quite sick, and that it wasn't that the father was just evil keeping the mother away, but that he was doing it to actually protect Picard. But so we brought up a couple, it's a little problematic just given the fact that, one, it's taking place in the future, and like even now our treatment of people who are mentally ill is not locking someone away in a room, generally speaking. Like there's lots of treatment, lots of options.
That felt very old world or very like Victorian, and that the
and
mother
it even looked Victorian.
Yeah, and it looked very old world, was their aesthetic for those flashbacks.
So I think it's interesting getting the backstory on Picard. Again, where's Robert? But the backstory on Picard, interesting. Backstory on Picard's father, interesting. The mother, interesting. Like all that's fine. And there's some trauma there, and that's, I just didn't understand why it's kind of a little old school to be like, this is how I was trying to protect you from your mother by like putting her in this dungeon looking room. So, or whatever.
Yeah, when I first watched it, I kind of got the impression, and I was noticing that James Callis, his father, was he actually a Starfleet officer? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think that was just in the memory.
Was something. I was trying to remember, maybe I should have rewatched it, but from the family episode with Robert, that he does mention his father at one point. We never see his father much, but he does mention his father, and I'm pretty sure his father was not in Starfleet. So I don't think his father was actually someone who was a mental health expert.
Right.
But and this is still would have been the 2310s or something.
Yeah, and we're advancing all the time in treatment of mental health. So I just think it would have been better to do it the other way, which is that. But they needed this idea of monster, this idea of like scary horror. There's kind of elements, because there's a scene in the flashback, and we should move on from that episode because that's actually last episode. But there is a scene where you see his mother getting like pulled backwards, and she's like, ah, and it's like seeing that. I'm like, how, like the imagery. There was a few times in TNG where there'd be like horror imagery, and I remember being really shocked by it. Like there's the episode where Data's like having those dreams where he's like cutting someone and they're like made of cake, and then he's drinking a straw to someone's neck. That all felt very horror filmy. But
and there's frame of mind where Riker kind of goes crazy.
Yeah. There's a few other examples where like there's some things that were. Remember the person gets dematerialized and rematerialized, and half their body's in the ship, and they're dead, but they're like half their bodies like they're like. And they see them in the hall. I remember as a kid watching that, going, "Oh my god, that scared the crap out of me."
A phase accident. There was a
phase.
The
ship was going in and out of phase, and then someone somehow got trapped in their body, and I remember seeing that, and just that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Anyway, so this episode starts. That is really dark. Can we see that at all?
No.
Well, let's explain it. What we're seeing, and we'll move on quick because it is really dark, but it's basically the episode starts with a kid in the woods. It's like very ET-esque, which makes sense when you find out what's going on.
And we figured out it would have taken place in the early 80s for the character's age.
Yeah, because we're meeting him in 2024, and he's anyway, yeah,
50.
it makes sense. It makes sense. So we see a kid running in the woods, and then he has a flashlight, and he looks up, and there's a Vulcan, and then we move on. That's the cold open. Is this supposed to be next?
Yeah, we were going to talk about this next.
I'm just going to put it up, but then I'll go to this. So, Vulcan. There's a kid meeting Vulcans in the woods, and that's all you know. And then, yeah, I don't remember exactly. Like, now that we don't have the next screenshot, I don't think the next thing that happened was exactly this.
No, I think so. We'll talk about, because this episode is one of those ones where there's sort of 4 different plot streams that are cut.
Well, let's talk about this plot stream.
So let's talk
it's
about
there.
them
The photos
in turn.
So yeah.
One of the plot streams involves, again, we don't even know her name. We'll call her
Yeah.
Dash because
or Soji.
We'll call her Soji because we're lazy, I guess.
Apologies.
But there's this arc where Soji sort of realizes her own backstory. Like we're
Through-
saying, very similar to Soji in the last season, realizing she's actually an android, and this one she realizes she's actually a genetic experiment
Yeah.
from her father, who's not really her father, and she tries to deal with that.
Yeah, so it's one of those. Again, there's been a few kind of B plots or B stories that they keep cutting away to that I'm just kind of like, why? Like, and I know they're going to weave them in because of course they're not going to just show things and not ever attempt to weave them in, and they are already starting to weave them in, but it still feels a little like it's, again, filler, and also like it distracts enough or so much from the main story that you're kind of like almost distracted by it. So anyway, she's got this augmented reality glasses thing she wears, and what happens is, do we screenshot that? Yeah.
It gives her an opportunity to meet Q, and Q gives her the real cure, not the fake cure that he gave the father.
And I was laughing at a lot of his acting. What is it, John Delaney?
Delaney?
But he's always been an actor who like chews up the scenery, like, you know, he kind of he's very theatrical, very big, over the top,
and it's perfect.
It's pretty hilarious. Like, you know, he's doing it on purpose. It's like, it'd be different if he was just a bad actor.
I remember he played a psychoanalyst for Rene Picard, the astronaut, earlier, and he was using the like the German Freud accent.
Yeah. So he's kind of hilarious. Like, you can tell he has fun with the role. So here he's basically, you know, hitting her over the head with the truth, like basically like saying like, no, this is how you were made, and this is who you are. And like, do we ever really learn why? I mean, not yet.
Well, in the previous episode, she saw a bunch of clips of like the past
failing at certain iterations,
and she's like, hey, that looks like me, but it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Adam Soong's motivation for being a mad scientist,
well, so far
they don't really give that.
So far, the main thing they're using the connection with Q, and again, I'll say Soji and Adam Soong, is that Q keeps kind of manipulating Adam Soong to try to kill Picard. And
which doesn't have much to do with anything. Why is Q
why
doing
Q
it himself?
do it? Why doesn't Q do it?
Manipulating someone else? Like,
yeah, like a new character.
I think, but I stepping back from the plot a little bit, we know that this is genetic experiments. We know that Soong is related to the eugenics and the eugenics war. Eric Soong is later. I think some sort of decision or some sort of this is going to lead. It's time for they've retconned this idea of the original eugenics war that Khan had back on Earth.
Right.
Could happen now later.
Mm-hmm.
So basically in this time period. So this could be the start of the eugenics war somehow. And I know in Star Trek Stranger Things there is a eugenics character who's somehow connected to Khan.
Mm-hmm.
So we might learn more about that backstory. So I think that's where we're going here. I think that this is something to do with the whole eugenics war thing.
I hope so, because if not, it's really like a really elaborate, weird roundabout way to try to get Brent Spiner to kill Picard several times. First with a Tesla, and yeah, we'll have to go through the stuff in this episode because I'm even forgetting kind of like how that comes up again. How we've got Q again saying like, "I've got a way for you to do," and it's just kill Picard. It's always just like, you got to stop him from.
Well, there's now 2 characters who want to kill Picard. We'll learn that later. But in the next shot, I think, is of Adam Soong. He goes like super villain. He goes off.
Villain.
Yeah, I got a line here is like, "You exist because I willed it."
Right.
He starts talking about how great his will is and how like she doesn't exist without him, and it's pretty dark.
Well, and the thing that I thought was kind of funny is that right after he like freaks out and becomes super villain, he kind of says to her, "I mean, I do love you." It's like, you know, little too late. Why would you even end it with, "No, I do love you"? Like, come on. Anyway, super. So then she's kind of like literally has her little freedom vial,
yeah,
but it's again kind of symbolic. And I felt the scene was very much like symbolizing like a child who lives with an abusive parent, like kind of narcissistic, who sees themselves as God and infallible, and then the child finally says, "No, you can't stop me anymore. I have my freedom."
Yeah, and
she drinks this thing. Now she can go, and he literally
and her
says,
name is one of the, I forget what her name is, but they say the name of all of his experiments has to do with the real children of Zeus and Greek mythology, and that whole like I willed it is very Zeus.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so he says, "You can't leave. Like I own you, basically." And she's like, "No." And that kind of dialogue is, I think, like,
yeah. He says, "You don't exist without me," and then she says, "Maybe you don't exist without me."
Oh, I didn't remember that.
She says that right at the end, as he's leaving.
Okay, I didn't remember that little moment. So anyway, that was, if it was a show about these characters, I'd be like, oh, interesting. But because I'm still kind of like, why is this all so? Why is this all happening? Kind of. Oh yeah, so I forgot.
Yeah, we have another shot of.
This stupid thing keeps popping up here. It's like there's not enough iCloud space. Like, okay, I don't need it. So yeah, here he is, kind of. This is when he's realizing she's leaving, and he's just this frail old crazy geneticist, who keeps trying to kill Picard.
He seems, but I love Brent Spiner. Yeah,
I do too, but I haven't.
I feel like I think he's convincing as the character, but it's an odd villain-esque.
Yeah, and he wavers, right? He's not just full villain. He'll go like villain, but then he'll be like kind of like, and I good villains are usually villains who are somewhat likable, and so that's not a problem. But it almost is happening in a way that like feels undecided. It doesn't feel like, oh, he's like one of those villains that's kind of like evil because he's not evil. Yeah. But he's just kind of like, every once in a while he'll be like, ha, my will, you cannot leave, I own you. And then he's just kind of like, oh, then in this moment he's like, oh, where you going? Where you going? Are we going to have a barbecue tonight?
And there's been so many mad scientist characters on Star Trek, and a lot of them have actually had obsessive parentive plots or issues with them. It strongly suggests that he's going to sacrifice himself at some point to save her, and then she'll finally be like, "Oh, he kind of was my father." I mean, that's the cliche that we expect at this point. We'll see where that goes. Like I say, we expected maybe to be to do with the eugenics. We're definitely going to see Soji character again.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I do, but I'm not sure I agree with the assessment that you had with the FBI agent, but we'll get into that too. Okay. So let's move on. So then we've got this the quest continues between Raffi and Seven to try to track down Agnes, who there's a lot of stuff going on with that you were kind of like, oh, it makes sense, but
to when they were just trying to track down Rios when he was captured earlier. They spend a lot of time just trying to track down people.
They do.
And it has a very like Law and Order. I've been watching Law and Order lately. That's been re-HDified, but like Law and Order, two detectives like on the trail to try to find somebody.
Yeah, and they try to do this like the humor between the two of them. Like they kind of try to keep it light to some degree, where they make stupid jokes from time to time.
And explore the relationship.
Canadian reference, but I compared it to like Due South at one point because Raffi says, well, to find her, you have to like basically think like a Borg. And then she starts going like, well, she wouldn't have known this and she wouldn't. And so anytime in a show, and like Due South was like the pinnacle of like having a detective, like an RCMP officer who can track people down by like smelling the dirt. He'd like smell the dirt and be like, they went south. Due South. So it's kind of funny. I don't know. It's not such a big problem for me, but again, it just feels a little bit like they're always looking for someone. And then you've got this situation with they get mad at each other because Seven is kind of enjoying not having her prosthetic on her face and kind of being human and not being like always, I think, thought of as like. And
she brings up the fact that Raffi is manipulating her, which isn't really true in this case.
She's manipulative, yeah.
But the did feel like she was being manipulative to Elnor.
Right. Which we then look at. So I don't know if let's just, so we kind of stick with this plot. So we'll just go back to, and I actually screenshotted literally, she's eating batteries out of cars. And I think you are more forgiving of that as me. I'm just kind of like,
I did think it made sense.
There's so many things they could do to kind of be like, I don't know. There's so many things she could do. Like even the lithium ion battery idea, but here she's eating car batteries. I don't think those have lithium ion in them. Those are literally just like acid and,
Maybe I think a lot of maybe they're hybrid cars or electric cars. Those would be either.
Yeah. Like let's go with that. She's eating batteries out of some hybrid, maybe some Teslas, a Prius. Larry David's car is being eaten.
Yeah.
Um,
I just thought it makes sense.
So-
Remember, she's not a Borg. She isn't being normally assimilated. She's a Borg. She's being turned into a Borg queen without any actual Borg material. So she needs to make that Borg material out of
she's eating car
special
batteries.
metals. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim likes it. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, so another thing that's kind of funny in the scene is they're tracking her. Where is she? Where is she? And all of a sudden, there's just these cars lined up, and all their hoods are open. And I like, oh, she's just right there eating car batteries. Anyway, so then she. Then there's the flashback.
They have a little fight, but it's not that consequential. It's just the only
what you were talking
consequence
about.
is that they realize Agnes is still there, so there's still a hope. So then, so then she sort of deals with that flashback. Yeah, I did sort of manipulate Elnor. She blames herself because Elnor wanted to go back to the Romulan place, but she sort of guilted him into staying at Starfleet and becoming going to the academy and becoming an ensign.
Well, and right in the beginning of that scene too, Elnor's kind of questioning because he always like the candor, what is it called, the absolute candor.
Absolute candor.
So he says to her like, basically what she's doing makes no sense because she doesn't want.
She was fixing the
She
ship
doesn't
so
want
that
Seven
Seven could go away.
Yeah, she doesn't want
didn't
Seven to leave, but she's fixing the ship, and he's kind of saying that makes no sense. If you don't want her to leave, don't fix. And he says
even the way you're doing it.
Yeah, he
is
says it's like a weak.
manipulative.
Yeah, he says it's like a weak attempt at like kind of acting like a hero, and then anyway. So that plays into that as well.
I think we were just reminded how much we liked
I'll come back to
Elnor
this
and
one.
wish that Elnor had a place in this plot.
Yeah, so for sure, I really liked Elnor's character in season 1. He was one of my favorites. I like exploring. He's kind of this young, naive, but also a super crazy badass. Can like basically like win a fight against like five.
He'd
or 6
come in
people.
handy with fighting a bunch of agent or spy Borgs or
Well, yeah, and
special service.
It was
Borgs, I
almost
guess.
like one of those things where that was almost horror movie moment where he like I think he like beheaded a couple, like it was really intense. I was like, holy moly. So yeah, them not having him I think is a mistake because I think he was a great character and I think they could have gotten a lot of if him not being there is literally to just try to have Raffi be a little more angsty, like there's a lot of reasons they could have made her that way.
We already have like 4 or 5 streams of plots where every character, like Raffi and Seven have something to do, Rios has something to do, Picard with Guinan have something to do. Well, that's the thing, is that I think they could have cut some of these plots and then given Elnor a place. I think that's what we're saying.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Raffi, but the point of this
Not
scene,
everyone needs to have their own, like you can get to know characters. You can I think character development is awesome and necessary. Create 3-dimensional characters. You can do that without them being hunted by a weird bounty hunter that for some reason mistakes them for someone else, or I don't know, like someone gets stuck in a gorilla costume and then ends up in a cage in the zoo. Like you don't need every character to have situations like that happening. You can still reveal things about them while they're with each other. They don't all have to be on their own adventure. But anyway.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing, is that I think we feel in a lot of ways there could have been more subtle writing. Just to sort of finish that thought, she blames herself for Elnor, which I don't really completely agree, because it's not like the Elnor that died was the Elnor that went to the academy. The Elnor that died was from the mirror universe. I think we're assuming that he wouldn't have been jumped over if Q wouldn't have moved him over to the alternate universe, but it's her feeling guilty, although conceptually seeing him die makes sense for her feeling guilty. It doesn't logically make sense to me with the way the plot has gone, but
somehow my phone was playing our stream. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. When you brought that up too, I was like, oh yeah, that's also an issue. That's another issue, which is just like why, because the Q cued people into this other timeline. So why was Elnor ever cued into the other timeline?
Yeah, he could have been showed up and queued up time if he'd spent the last year with the Romulans doing his Romulan stuff.
Right, it wouldn't have made a difference.
He wasn't even on the main ship with them. He wasn't on the Stargazer. He was on the Excelsior with Raffi. Q just knew enough to include him in the.
So he could be killed. So Raffi would have some.
Raffi could feel indirectly responsible for something she did to him in a completely other dimension.
Yeah, it's so funny how sometimes bad writing sometimes is overly complicating simple things and overly simplifying complicated things in a way that it almost like mixes your cables, where like it's okay for complicated things to be complicated and simple things to be simple, or even to simplify the complicated so that it's more understandable. But when you complicate things for no reason, I think the audience is just kind of like, why is that so dang complicated? Why did that happen that way? Like it didn't have to. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. But this is just to ground it a little bit. I think the actor's doing great. It's convincing.
Elnor,
but Eds and Raffi, they're doing a great job to sort of, I think, convince that of the guilt and her motivations for why she's acting this way.
Well, sometimes my issue is like, I think when an actor is given some emotional arcs that don't always make sense. Their acting can seem worse because what they're given to work with isn't. So I don't know. Rafi's character just seems really one note. Like it's just always kind of like ticked off or sad about something, and then makes a joke and takes nothing seriously. There's not a lot of like. I know they're trying to build depth, but I think season 1 did that more because we got to meet like her child.
Yeah, well, I think Elnor is I think the reason
child.
I don't know if they're going to explore this more, but I think the reason that she guilted Elnor into staying in the Starfleet is because she didn't want to lose another child because Elnor's become a child figure for her.
Yeah, for sure. It's just So anyway, then
we have another
the next
arc,
kind of arc that we want to look at,
and that
is
was
the Rios.
Chris breaking the Temporal Prime Directive to impress a girl.
Yeah, so we talked about that in our last review of episode 7 because he brings them on the bridge on the ship. He beams them there, even though they're not supposed to be messing with this timeline. And then, but who cares? Bring them on the bridge, show them everything. This scene starts, I think, with the kid mashing a bunch of buttons on the ship. Like he's literally. It starts. You see him in the distance through the windshield of the ship, and he's just going. And you can hear the buttons like beep, 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 and I'm like, what is this kid doing? And then it gets into the ship, and the mother is actually like, that's not good. He should. And then he goes, oh no, it's okay. The ship is in what mode?
Oh, routine
maintenance mode or something.
Yeah.
And like, I have a child now, and like anyone who's a parent, obviously my child's not at this age yet, but like, it's still an important lesson to teach the kid to not, when you're in a spaceship.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to text whether it's in the routine or not next time.
Like it's even though he can't hurt it or can't. But anyway, I just saw that. I was like, what the heck is going on?
As emblematic of that sort of problem.
Yeah, so he just doesn't seem to care much about it. So then
he makes him cake.
Then he shows him that he can, oh my goodness, replicate. And the kid goes, anything? And he's like, yeah. And then the kid's just like, 4 cakes.
I was expecting to see 4 entire cakes, so this makes more sense.
Like 4 slices of. Yeah, that's kind of a ripoff, actually. How did the replicator know he wanted 4 like cake quarters?
Because 4 cakes at once would be insane.
Yeah, the replicator just like identified the child asking and was like, no, that kid should not have 4 full cakes. So,
but the characters
is it like 4 lights? Because I'm surprised someone didn't say like there are 3 cakes, and then the kid's like, no, there are 4 cakes.
Excellent. But we do sort of explore their relationship more in the next coming scene, and he does say that he sort of loves her, which I think
that was actually
we both sort of, when we were watching that scene, because we watched this one, we just watched this one together. We both were like, wow, the rhythm of that scene and the way the kid interrupted them, and then she went back to kiss him, was very, very cinematic.
Yeah,
and the rhythm.
Yeah.
And that his relationship with her is much more like how a relationship would develop in a movie. And if you took all the scenes of them together, you could probably edit them and make them just like a movie.
Yeah.
Whereas we're so used to on Star Trek these sort of relationships developing so quickly because they only have an episode to do a love story. So they're like they basically characters will fall in love like immediately so that they can have a arc to end it by the end of the episode. So I think what's happening is we're getting so much time with them together to really maybe convince us that they're really in love. And that suggests that we're going to get another Edith Keeler situation where he's got to leave her and maybe sacrifice her to maintain the timeline.
Yeah, well, they're usually
especially since he's showed her so much of the time-breaking stuff.
Well, but then it like begs the question is like if something's got to happen to her. I mean, I think how they'll deal with it is just like once they resolve the time issue, they'll just like they won't have any memory of them ever being there. I think that's how they're going to solve that. They'll be like, oh, well, the timeline was reset or something.
Even though it's like reset button one.
I think so, because how are they going to deal with the fact that there's how is that old? Is that kid 10? That there's like a 10-year-old that knows about like that kid's going to tell people. And so the 2 issues is the kid tells people and you could be like, well, no one will believe the kid. Well, then you create this poor child who like his whole life is like told that he's like crazy.
He's going to become the FBI guy again.
Yeah, basically, except it's way more in detail. At least the FBI guy just like saw someone in the woods. He could have maybe convinced himself it didn't actually happen. But this kid like was on a ship with his mother. He'd be like, Mom, that happened, right? With the cakes? And she'll be like, no, you never had 4 cakes. It was 3 cakes. And that'll be the thing.
I don't know. I don't think they're gonna reset button the whole thing. That's a time. I think
they will for the people of Earth.
That's a time thing we've seen before on Star Trek, but it's a whole season of time travel. I don't think they can legitimately do that. But I think they might reset button. We were very at the start. We were like, things are too perfect in this current timeline from the first episode. They might reset button all that. I don't know.
Something's resetting.
Something's reset buttoning and Edith Keelering.
Yeah. But yeah, so actually I liked the dialogue. It was some of the at least when it comes to like romantic dialogue, I kind of thought it was cool and interesting how she presented that to him. She's like, pretend I've known you 10 years and this happened, and then you revealed something to me. And then she said, so reveal now something that would have taken me 10 years in a relationship to learn about you. And then he's like, then I was like, whoa, no pressure. I was really thinking, like, what's he going to say? It'd be funny if he was like, I like turtles. But he basically starts saying, I think the first moment I saw you, I fell in love with you. And then they kiss, and the kid's like, just in the background eating cake. So then the next kind of plot that's going on is
The interrogation.
Guinan. Yeah, so back to kind of the interrogation. The FBI agents have them captured. And Guinan's in this room, separate from Picard.
Yeah, there's a scene very awkwardly where the FBI agent's like,
Separate
all right,
them.
we're going to separate you from your uncle now so that you can do something else in another scene.
And then the Q shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
it's literally
it's
like,
a great scene though between Q and Guinan. I like it.
yeah, it was cool. But I guess the issue wasn't the scene; it was like what the scene then after, what happened after. But anyway, so this scene's kind of interesting. She kind of says, "I sense from you, like when I summoned you," because that's what she said. Oh, the summon actually worked, and he was like, "No, I walked over here."
Yeah.
And she basically says, "That's why you walked over."
Yeah, it took so long.
Yeah, so I just picture Q, like I don't know. Somehow I feel like maybe he knew he was summoned, but and then he tried this, right? And he was like, "It's not working." So he's like, looks at his
Damn.
watch, like, is there a bus running right now? And then he has to just get.
That would have been a funny scene.
Yeah,
Of
someone
him
has to
trying
do
to
like
do-
the background story of like what Q did during this situation to get there. Also, if he doesn't have his Q powers, like how did he know they were in this FBI interrogation area, and how did he get there? Like that's got to be a hard place to get to. It's FBI.
But he must still have some powers or some knowledge because he used to know everything. He used to be omniscient.
Well, he's like the ship. Some things are broken and some aren't. The ones that should like can make him still Q enough to like show up here, that stuff's not broken.
Yeah, it does seem a little arbitrary. He says so. He sort of explores the fact that for some reason it's not completely revealed yet, he's dying, and that's something about the motivation of what's going on. He has a cool few lines like threshold of the unknowable, that knowing that he has a lifetime that's going to end. He was like, wow, this is going to be great. That's a new thing. It'll be like an exciting sort of Kierkegaardian. I have purpose
I thought it
unto
would
death.
create meaning for him. Like,
Yeah.
And then what did he say? The line about how like, but so far it's just been I'm fading out to nothing or something.
Yeah, he just, but I haven't found that meaning. Everything's just fading out.
Guinan's like, so wait, this whole thing is just about you finding meaning with
With
and it's
Picard?
Like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah, well, kind of. And then like and then the other line that I thought I noted was, "It's the escape that counts."
Yeah, it's not. What is it? It's not the.
The trap, because you
trap,
trapped him back
but
in
how you-
time.
like,
He's like, I didn't even send him back in time. He went back in time on his own. It's the escape that counts. So
Right, but I don't think that's really all that deep. I think it's just gonna literally be like he wants to see like the decisions that are made to like find your way back versus, when people say it's not about if you fall, it's like you get back up. I don't think it's like deep.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be like, what else can it mean? It's the escape. Anyway, we screenshotted that too because this is just the conversation. We just wanted a
During
shot of
Guinan.
Guinan as well
Sure.
during this conversation, kind of being like, okay, Q, I don't know, what is she like? There's a few things she says to him, but it's basically like, I could tell that something was wrong with you, and does she kind of question like, okay, but like, why are you doing all this to Picard? Like, why?
yeah, she has like, why? And that's when he says like, why'd you trap them back in here? And he's like, no, it doesn't. That's not the
Right,
trap. It's
right.
the escape that counts. So
Right.
it is back to him like testing people in a trial and him sort of vicariously living humanity's perspective.
And I do
And
like.
Guinan says something later about how, and there's something that Star Trek once in a while touches on, which is sort of that humans versus other races we encounter, other species, are somehow special because of something. Because we have some different view of things, or we're always trying to better ourselves.
That was kind of
which-
it. And I did like that moment because Picard had this moment where she says that to him and he just kind of goes. He doesn't say anything. He just kind of like is sitting there and nods. And it's like, well, yeah, Picard like has always been an example of like the better things of humanity. The fact, and I think that's why Q
is obsessed
has
with
always
them.
been obsessed with Picard
Yeah.
because he's like this noble. But the thing that's interesting though is that like there's a lot they could do with this. I don't know if they will, but like we're learning in this season that Picard like was flawed and sometimes took people on dangerous missions because he was just running from something on his own. So he hasn't been at this noble, amazing guy. He had his own psychology going on, of course. Like, would that be something that Q would be like, would like damage Q's idea of who Picard is. Like, does that matter?
Well, it must be relevant because it's being explored in this season.
Yeah, but will
in
they
parallel
go, I
with
wonder if
this.
they'll actually look at it in a way that really like looks at kind of like what it is to be a person that like to do good, to do what's right, but then also have like your motivation for doing, like there's a lot to kind of like the human condition in that that they could explore, but they probably won't. It'll just be like everything's normal now.
We'll see. I think there's room for some interesting stuff to happen.
So let's kind of move on. I don't know if you can. Yeah, you can see it. So there was this. The whole reason that. So we talked about how they separated them in 2 different rooms, so Q could kind of appear to Guinan. Not appear. My God, he walked in. Never mind. He doesn't appear. He can't do that anymore. That's the whole point. But she now we learn that actually Guinan can appear to Picard, but only if she does a Stranger Things 11 nosebleed first, or well.
Yeah, basically.
And it was very horror movie-esque again.
Yeah.
It was like she like appeared in this weird shaky, she'd like appear and then kind of like shift and move. And, I'm surprised Picard didn't look over and just go like, ah! I'm like, what is happening? But he was just kind of like, so anyway, she says, humans are always getting stuck in the past.
Yeah, and that was something that Q referenced too when they were talking.
And then in the moment, then Picard's like, aha, now I will talk to him. But you had mentioned this, and I think it's completely, the scene with Q still could have happened with Guinan. I think that scene was great. The scene with Picard next could happen. But we didn't need Guinan to show up and appear in this horror movie way to kind of spur Picard on to like asking this FBI agent about his past. He could have come up with that on his own. Like he could have inferred
that there was something about try to think about what's motivating this FBI agent on his own, because he's a good enough negotiator and knows people well enough to figure it out. As a viewer, we figured out his backstory just because we saw that flashback at the start of the episode.
The ET
I think
thing.
we already figured out he was the kid, obviously. And Picard didn't see the flashback, but he still should have figured it out on his own. But anyway, what he figures out is that this FBI agent, well, in the early 80s, presumably, he ran into some Vulcans, and they tried to mind meld with him and erase his memory. But it didn't work, and he remembered encountering Vulcans his whole life, and somehow became like an X-Files FBI agent.
Yeah. That's, you know what's funny? That's basically Mulder's backstory in X-Files. Mulder basically had an alien encounter when he was a kid and then became an X-Files FBI agent. This is Mulder. Like we're seeing like the, what happened to Mulder? Well, he ended up interviewing Picard. But yeah, so what they're kind of trying to do is turn this idea of like sometimes things in the past that appear to be monsters are just, we perceive them wrong. But I think
he uses the term monster too.
Yeah.
Monsters in the dark, which sort of really, really sort of echoed what we saw in the last episode where we were talking about monsters in the dark.
But the opposite is also true. Sometimes things that in the past that appeared to be monsters are like can be evil, terrible things that happen to people. It's not always like, oh no, the aliens weren't trying to hurt you. They were trying to, because so in this image here, Picard's kind of showing him, oh, they were Vulcans and they were trying to mind meld with you because
they wanted to erase the memory of what happened.
They were going to try
this
to
wouldn't happen to you, but it didn't
trauma.
work out.
Yeah, they were trying to keep you from trauma by erasing the memory, and then Picard says like, which clearly didn't work.
Because you have trauma.
Because you have trauma. What was the friggin' kid doing in the first place?
He was looking for his dog.
That would have. If I was one of the Vulcans, I would have been like, "What are you doing here, kid? Get out of here."
He was looking for his dog with like a really old flashlight in a classic. Again, like we were saying, classic early 80s sort of movie.
The other thing we both brought up is that his memory of this, like, oh, this dark monster in the woods, when he runs into these Vulcans, they're like, it's a super bright area. They look really friendly. Like, they kind of look like just neighbors.
Well, more than that, in a universe where Star Trek doesn't exist, if you encounter Vulcans dressed as Vulcans in the woods and you're a kid, you're going to think they're elves. They look like elves. They don't look like aliens.
Or like people getting ready for Halloween.
or that would be more
You know what
reasonable.
I mean? Like, they look human enough that I don't think a kid would have been like, monsters in the woods. He'd be like, what are these people doing? Oh, their ears seem to be pointing.
Like to be honest, he probably wouldn't even notice the ears. He might have seen the technology they were messing with.
But even then, like as a kid, you'd be like, cool technology. As a kid, I would be like, I mean, I might be freaked out with strangers and stuff, but anyway, whatever. It's dark, it's scary. He's an adult. Picard shows him this was a mind meld. He
mythologizes it.
Yeah, he kind of like takes the magic.
He's like,
out
hey,
of
it wasn't so
says,
bad. Then he gets fired quickly.
He gets fired so fast. This poor guy, man. He literally, and that tends to happen in these Picard episodes too. Like someone will like leave a room and come back, and they're like, "Oh, while I was in the room, I passed the bar exam, and for some reason things happen."
Well, that happened in an earlier scene where he learns that Picard was like injured, then he comes back and he says, "Injured. You must have gone to a clinic." Clinic.
Right.
I looked up the report from ICE. ICE recorded this report, and there was sort of this payoff of that sort of that when Rios completely ironically said the entire plot to
One of the
an
ICE agents.
incredulous ICE agent who just
Yeah.
laughed at him and pushed him away or whatever.
Yeah, and then he
He
repeats
actually
it back to
recorded
Picard.
that into a report, and that report somehow already got in this guy's hand. And it was sort of like, it was a funny payoff, but it didn't really make any
Didn't really
sense.
make sense. It happened so fast, and so there was something else that happened like that too, where something happened. We cut away from them and then cut back, and someone's already something. And anyway, I don't remember exactly, but
Probably Agnes.
so that's pretty much bringing us to the end of the episode. There's a couple other things, but so just to wrap that up, Picard ends up being released with Guinan because this FBI agent decides to believe Picard.
Yeah, well, Picard
And
says,
then-
you can help us and be a hero because we're trying to save the universe.
Yeah, exactly. And this guy's like, that's my life's mission. But what happens is he comes out again, like you said, I think next scene, and has all, he's got the stereotypical box of his his work
That was
items.
the start of this scene that they had the discussion.
Where he's getting fired.
Yeah.
Well, it's not before the mind meld thing. Picard has to do the mind meld thing first to tell him that, hey, you encountered Vulcans, and that which is happening right here. That's the mind meld thing.
Right.
So he tells him he encountered Vulcans.
Then he gets
Then he
fired.
goes get fired, and the
And
reason
then
he
he-
gets
then he
fired
says,
because
"You can
Picard says,
help us."
wait, why are you fired? And he says, because I can't cry wolf twice, basically, because basically he said it was aliens again.
But didn't want to give the evidence that it was aliens. Not
Yeah,
that he
didn't-
really has any evidence.
He didn't want to get them in trouble. So he
Yeah.
kind of went and said, I guess they're not aliens. And then they were like, well, you're fired because you keep telling us everyone's aliens. Although the first encounter was when he was a kid. So how are they going to get, he still got the job in the FBI. When they interviewed him, he was like, when I was a kid, I saw aliens. And they were like, if that ever happens again, you're fired. I don't get it.
Doesn't really make sense.
But anyway, and then he says this thing about, well, I guess my whole life and work was useless. Poor guy. This is so intense. And then Guinan kind of says,
No,
basically,
it's useful because you can free us now after having just captured us in the previous at the end of the previous episode.
Yeah.
That's why I think he must come back. We must see this character again.
right. And that was a thing we debated because you were like, he must come back. And I was like, I don't think he's going to. I think that's the end of that character.
'Cause that wasn't a big enough payoff for
I
that
know,
whole
it's
arc.
weird. He's fired and that's why I don't think he's going to come back, because they gave him a slight payoff. If there was no payoff, I think they would have. But because Guinan said that thing where they were like, no, you did something good and your life's not useless. And he's kind of like, well, anyway. He didn't even really buy into it.
But he's already fired. It's not like he can keep them from walking out.
Yeah.
He's not actually doing anything.
No, this whole season is just ruining people's lives in this world, because now this child, too.
Yeah,
got
butterflies.
this 4-cake kid
This guy
now.
would have been the head of the FBI.
Yeah, exactly. Who cares?
So that wraps up. And
That
then
wraps
sort
up.
of-
So now
there's
we
the
just
final scene.
to literally wrap up the episode, because they've been chasing down Agnes the whole time. She's been eating batteries.
She
Now
shows
they
up.
do have some payoff as far as connecting then Spiner or Soong to the kind of more of the A plot. He's like, it's a less transient on the outside, and now we're like, okay, he's kind of part of the main picture. Although he already was when he was dealing with Q, but now. Does Agnes then implore him? Does she say, "Oh, you gotta kill Picard now"? Is that?
Yeah, that's sort of like, you're gonna have to help me kill Picard. No, she's like, you're gonna have to help me kill someone who's in our way. And he's like, Picard?
Yeah, he already knows. He's like,
He's
nah.
like, yes.
He's like,
But
nah.
I'm a little confused because doesn't it make more sense? Because she wants to use the, I forget what the name of the space
I forget it too.
thing. I did note it in the notes at some place.
The ship.
Europa mission. You want to use the Borg Queen wants to use the Europa mission somehow to help her assimilate the galaxy.
Yeah.
Because-
Does she? Oh, I didn't even. Yeah.
I get that impression. So
I hope that's at least
because she
makes
can
sense.
assimilate all of Earth eventually, but maybe if she can get out into space, she can assimilate all of the galaxy early.
Really?
I guess
In a ship that's probably not warp
designed to
capable.
make it to Europa. And
Yeah, she's like,
back.
they land on Mars, and she's like, who the heck am I going to
She's going
assimilate?
to assimilate the moon Europa.
Yeah, that's a good point. If they can't get off this planet into the future, yes, she can assimilate all of Earth, but that's way less than what the Borg were doing before, where they were assimilating entire
But
solar systems.
She knows
and-
technology. She could go back and assimilate the actual ship they came on. And
She'll
then-
just assimilate the actual planet and get it to fly through space and assimilate other planets.
But either way, she's
Anyway.
definitely, maybe she's also afraid of Picard because she knows Picard and Seven together could probably save Agnes and stop her.
that don't look like the face of someone who's afraid of Picard. I don't know.
Fair.
No, I don't know. Like, yeah, it makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. So
Well,
they're
they're,
here.
they're the bad guys. They got to get together and have a showdown with
yeah,
Picard.
yeah. So anyway, the other funny thing, we were talking about how things just happen, like boom, like how the Q snaps his fingers, and then in the next scene, okay, well here she's assimilating this guy, but it was funny because all of a sudden they're standing there and you see that they've assembled like a group of like
20
super soldiers.
20 like ex-special forces soldiers are just there.
Yeah, and they're
Out
like,
of
"What do you
nowhere.
want?" And then they're literally like, "What do you want us here for?"
What? Where did they come from?
It's
They're
not
out
like-
there, has it been a week?
I don't know. I think because they're still. Where are they right now? Are they on the ship?
They're
Where are
back.
they?
So the ship is still crashed in France. They keep beaming to not San Francisco, Los Angeles. I'm
Where's
pretty
this taking
sure.
place? Where is this?
I think they're taking place in Soong's compound,
Oh, okay.
which I think was also in Southern
Oh,
California.
that makes sense.
It
yeah.
seemed to be on the beach in Southern California.
Well,
I don't know
regardless,
if they made that clear.
Soong-
I think he might have gone to California. There was a scene where he was talking to some other scientists, and like they were like, "You're too crazy, you mad scientist. We're kicking you out of the scientist group."
Yeah, we're kicking you out of the scientist group, and then the only thing we're going to let you keep is that group of super soldiers, but use them within a week, or we take those back too. And he was like, yeah, okay, Agnes, we need to use those dang super soldiers. And she was like, well, do I have a good idea? I'm going to assimilate. I'm going to put green stuff on his face. So anyway, by eating batteries, she's gained the ability to touch someone's face, and nanites immediately create green colors.
But
on
they've
their
definitely
face.
established that this isn't typical. That's not assimilation as we've seen assimilation before. She doesn't have that ability yet. They've said that like her metals are pure enough, and that she's not going to. It's going to be imperfect assimilation.
But I made the comment
So-
that like it seems like assimilation, imperfect assimilation, seems much better and more efficient than the assimilation they used to do. Which like they'd have to like stick a hose in your neck and like you. Now she can like just touch someone's face.
And it also
That seems
the
way more
old
efficient.
assimilation seemed to take a little while too.
Yeah.
This one maybe is faster.
Now
we
you
don't,
just
we haven't
touch them
seen
and they're
this.
like, oh,
But
Board,
basically, they're going to end up because we talked. I think when we were watching it, she at some point she seemed a little bit like Terminator, and I mentioned that I heard in a podcast from the Delta Flyers podcast with the actors Robbie Duncan McNeil and
yeah. So oh gosh, not Chakotay. What's his name?
well Harry Kim
And
I'm talking in circles.
no, you know,
Paris.
Tom
Tom
Paris.
Paris.
Well, that was from the episode in TNG too, wasn't it? When with Will
Well, some of
Wheaton
them
and they
was-
were flying. Oh no, that was a different character he was playing, wasn't it?
Yeah, you've had a Nick Locarno character that
Yeah.
Duncan
some reason I was
McNeil
like-
played, and they sort of, and the actor character he ended up playing on Voyager, Tom Paris, sort of converged a little bit, became
Yeah,
sort
they were
of a
so
different
similar,
character.
but
I think there's a long story to that, but my point though is that they were talking about an episode Drone of the fifth season of Voyager, I think maybe six, where they were just talking about how originally they wanted sort of a Terminator story, and they shifted the drone gradually into more of a sympathetic, friendly Borg that they encountered. But I noticed that her character seems similar to the sort of the Terminator Borg
oh yeah.
character, and
She's very similar to like a Terminator type character, like super powerful and strong, like eating batteries.
and her scenes seem like that type of action movie, and she's getting
does,
a bunch
yeah.
of basically special forces assimilated henchmen to fight that would fit in that type of action movie.
Yeah, so we'll see the payoff of that. Like, are they going to look like Borg, or are they going to look just with like the black eyes?
Yeah, it
'Cause-
looks like they're gonna just have like some sort of like nanite black tattoo on their face or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, but not. I was saying like the thing I always loved about the Borg, they would have those like arms that seemed
Yeah,
like
that one arm.
yeah, where it'd be like meep, 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 meep. And there'd be like little blinking lights. But they were freaky. When I saw
They
them
were
as a
freaky,
kid, I was
but they
like,
were-
that's scary.
Yeah, they were really freaky when we were kids. But the Borg have always kind of been slow, clunky, and zombie-like.
No, these are gonna be super.
These
soldiers,
guys are
baby.
going to be like super soldiers.
They're gonna be like GI. What's it, GI Joe the movie? Where I don't know. Anyway, they're gonna be like flying
jumping around,
like Power
shooting.
Rangers. They're gonna be able to like jump on top of each other and like assemble into a super soldier. 12
Well, I
feet
think
tall.
that's the
30
real
feet
question
tall.
that hasn't been revealed yet. Is that are they going to be completely like Borg, one mind with her, or are they going to be something else where they kind of work independently? Because I kind of think they're going to be a little independent, right? For that to make sense.
I don't
as
know. As
henchmen?
soon as she touched his face, so it looked like he completely lost autonomy. Like he was just kind of
You
like
think?
that. So, but yeah, the whole hive mind thing. How's that going to work? Like, how are they going to figure
Can
out?
she already do that? Can she already do the Borg hive mind?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Those are the questions we
they don't
have
need a
right
network
now.
for that. Like, again, is that a car battery thing? Can she just like attach like 18 more car batteries? If the Borg had known how useful car batteries were, they would have been. Don't worry about assimilating people. Just go find more planets with cars and take the batteries. Anyway, overall 2 episodes. So that was episode 18. No, 8.
Yeah, and that's how that episode
18.
ends.
Ooh. That's how that ends. It's kind of like, oh, people are being assimilated now. Here we go. We'll show you one more time. And that's not good. It's not looking good. When people start getting assimilated, then maybe all of Earth and all will be
so
lost.
it's going to be a final battle that we'll see.
I'm preparing to be disappointed. So
I don't
hopefully
know. I'm excited. I think it would be cool if Elnor was there to do some kung fu.
Oh, well, how is he going to come back? He can't come back till they solve the timeline thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's going to be. I'm just saying it would be cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. But anyway, one thing. So we're done with that. So thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Really quickly, did you see the teaser for season 3?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Let's maybe we need to do an episode just about that.
Yeah,
because
to do a reaction to
that was crazy. I was like, oh my God, are they finally doing what I wanted them to do all along? It seems like they might be.
Yeah.
And by that I mean back on a ship with seems like almost all the actors and characters.
They were all
I heard
there.
Worf, I heard Beverly, I heard
Michael.
I think I heard Geordi.
Yeah, Geordi was definitely there. Troy was there.
Troy.
And
I
Riker.
hope
I think they were all there.
I hope Wesley's
I don't think we heard Wesley.
I know,
Will
but
Wheaton,
well, we might not hear his voice anyway because he wasn't a main character. But I would love it if Will Wheaton was back.
Well, I feel
and
like
I know they could easily argue he's
haven't-
off commanding
we
a
still
different
haven't-
ship.
Well, we still don't really know what happened to him. Last time we saw him, he went off with the Traveler into other planes of existence.
Yeah, see, that'd be cool.
And there's
What
sort of that
happened to
weird
that?
thing where he showed up for Riker and Troy's wedding in a deleted scene from Nemesis.
Oh yeah.
That isn't. I don't know if that's officially canon or not. So there's a lot of questions about where he is. So we'd love. I think we really want to know.
Yeah, but anyway, we might not see it. But regardless, that was a teaser. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Yeah, it was just a teaser with audio.
I feel lame saying this, but it actually gave me chills.
Oh, yeah,
I
definitely.
was like, oh man, I was like, this is what I wanted. And I don't know if it's just that maybe the fans weren't liking season 1 and 2 a whole lot, and they're like, let's just give them what they really want. I don't know.
sort of feel like that was always the plan. That they were going to wait a couple seasons and then finished off in a 3rd season where they really brought everyone back.
But it's
'Cause
so
they thought
different
it would
from
be
the first
so
2 seasons.
overwhelming
So
for this to
different.
see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they'll ever reveal whether because even if it wasn't planned, they're going to be, of course we planned it, of course. But the thing is, if you get that crew back on the bridge of a starship and they're just doing stuff, I'm going to be happy. That's the thing. I hate to say it, well, no, I shouldn't say that. If the episodes completely suck, I'm still going to be like, ah, man, they suck. So I really hope they don't.
I can point out they did sort of just bring people back onto the bridge of the Enterprise B at the start of Generations, and that generally kind of sucked.
I liked it. No, I think comparably speaking, I think compared to what they're doing with the Picard seasons, I would still prefer that, even if it's. I don't know. It's the tone of it. It's what it the feel of TNG, and that's where Picard comes from. That's where that character comes from, where we all got to know him, and the tone of that show is so much different than kind of this high action, tons of B plots, lots going on, drama kind of for no reason. It was more
but that's what it did, I guess. The teaser trailer that sort of invoked a tone that we kind of liked a lot better.
Yes.
Whereas this season and the previous season, and we've talked about this a lot in the last season, is that it was so tonally all over the place.
Yeah.
And we talk there's just this movie the last couple of we talked about how there's horror elements and there was romance elements and movie
adventure
elements, action adventure, Terminator action movie elements, and it just
actually not a lot of sci-fi elements, really. I mean, they use the transporter and
they
use
use
the
Terminator's a sci-fi.
True.
It's
like sci-fi action horror.
And in Stranger Things is a type of sci-fi. Sci-fi is, but it's not but not the type of TNG exploration sci-fi, Roddenberry-esque exploration sci-fi that we think of.
I hear you on that, Jan. So I think we've done 2 episodes back to back. So hopefully you check them out. And check out what we got. 2 left in the season. Is it 10 or 12?
I believe that it's 10.
Anyway, it's not. Let's just say it's 10. We'll see you at the next one because hopefully we'll stay more on track of doing the episodes.
We'll finish this at the next one.
yeah, and hope, fingers crossed. That was good. I like these 2 episodes better. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes the end episodes can always be, not always, but they can sometimes be the most disappointing because you're like, really? That's how they figured it all? That's how they summarize it all? But hopefully not. Hopefully hopefully it leaves me pleasantly surprised. And then, hey, season 3, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
They've already filmed season 3. They did that thing where they filmed season 2 and season 3 kind of back to back in Toronto. So I think they've already wrapped filming, and so it's going to come not too far off.
For sure.
Not that there's not tons of Star Trek that's coming, of course.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be talking about that stuff too, because I'm, it's not that hard
I'm excited
to
about
sit in a chair
Stranger
and talking
Things.
to Mike.
I'm excited about Stranger Things. Very excited.
That show's already been on, man.
Oh, Strange New Worlds. Well, there's a new season of Stranger Things coming soon.
Is there actually?
Yeah.
We could talk about that too. It doesn't have to all be Star Trek stuff. Let us know in the comments one person who watches, and tell us if you want us to talk about other shows too. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. That'll be the big surprise. I like surprises. Okay, well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying the new season. If not, whatever it is, let us know. And as always, I hope we kept you engaged.